I'm doing an analysis video on an RPG I beat recently called Pyre. It's a interesting, yeah, you kind of say strategy RPG. From Supergiant Games, same people that made Bastion, same people that made Transistor, games you've seen earlier in the channel. So I'm just gonna show you quickly how this game is. I'll just go ahead and start a new game so you can kind of see it. Start a new game, and you can pick the difficulty, reduce, standard, heightened. You can only unlock true Nightwing if you beat the game. So let's just say standard. Top right there always means it's saving. This is the load screen. Load times aren't long. They aren't too bad. While there isn't really voice acting in this game, the characters sometimes when they go to talk in the speech bubbles, it's like what's it called? When they go to talk in the speech bubbles, they make like murmurs. Like they'll be like kind of like Animal Crossing. So basically, we're in this place called the Downside, and that's our caravan kind of thing. We're in this place called the Downside, and the reason we are here is we've been exiled from our home place, which is the Commonwealth. And we've been exiled for many different reasons. You come to know these reasons of why each person of the Nightwings was exiled. So basically our job is to try to go through these rites or trials against other groups to see if we get a chance to send us back to the Commonwealth through combat. And cool part is about this game is you'll usually see something highlighted in red, and you could always put the cursor over it and it'll describe what it is, what it's talking about, so you're never really lost. I really like the art in this game. And they always have like a little description at the end of the description as well to kind of give further backstory, or it'll say what's the word I'm looking for? Like a passage under it. So basically the character you play is actually none of these guys that are in it, but you play the reader. So the reader helps them conduct the rites. So they'll be inside the rites while the rites are going on. These guys here, the reader just stays outside and helps move them, during combat. So right now they're talking about how they found you, broken, shaking, starving. And they're kind of, see when they remove their masks, they all look like different people. I would say all the people you get in this game are really cool. They all have their different personalities. Some of them, you can really tell being down here is taking a toll on them. Some of them remain more hopeful. Most of them, when you kind of learn about their crimes, most of their crimes probably isn't worthy of being cast down into this place, into the Downside, but because how they are about knowledge and books up there, people like me, the reader, would be cast down because I'm not allowed to know or to read scripture, because if I do, that means I'm in tune, in line with the scribes, the 8 scribes, which are these people that did this whole crusade, this whole thing that we're doing right now. Those are kind of like the forefathers kind of people. So there's Edwin. Edwin is one of my favorite guys, actually. He just seemed like a nice, honest dude. Yeah, and sometimes they'll prompt you to interact with stuff. Sometimes the characters will come up to you and be like, hey, you know, I'm kind of struggling with this, you know, on my mind. What do you think I should do about it? And they actually give you choices to answer, and your choices do have effect on them, whether it be, you know, stat wise. Well, it's usually always stat wise, but you know, whether it be stat wise or that they learn to trust you a little more or they distrust you, it all has an effect. When you do these rights, and this is the inside of the place, when you do these rights, you don't necessarily have to win the rights, but just know, in order to save people in your camp here, you're gonna have to win rights, especially the liberation right, which is the one you do at the end, which determines which team goes, which team gets to move on to the Commonwealth. But as it's known to you, the Commonwealth is pretty corrupt, so it's kind of like, do we really want to go back to the Commonwealth? So there's Jodario. Yeah, they're pretty comical. There's Ruki. And yeah, I mean, you never get to see her face or her body, but you know, she's a girl. And then they ask you, okay, do you want to admit it? And you could always put the cursor over it, and it'll kind of give you a little brief feeling of what the character, the reader, is thinking prior to saying something. So let's say we decide to deny it. And then, you know, they'll always react. And you could always move the cursor about. You could tap on things. This will be your main base of operations in between rights. There's a side door to always leave. A minstrel. And then you'll always be going into this book, which is basically the scribe book, a la their Bible. The letters are usually a little difficult to read from here, but luckily you could click expect and it reads everything perfectly there. So yes, you are gonna have to read quite a bit in this game, I will say, but it's definitely fun. Because I want to at least show you. I want to see if I could at least skip to when I do the first right, so you can kind of just see it.
Dare you tamper with forbidden knowledge? So soon after your sentence into exile. 'Tis true what the book says. You can be free again. Perhaps not you yourself, but someone worthy of the privilege. You witness now the path towards salvation. You witness the rights, the one way to return to glory. Though in your case, I hardly think it possible. Yet, by the grace of the scribes, it is my duty to inform you.
Those are our people on the left. Right now I have the book open, that's why it looks like, you know, a book page they're on. These are where the rites are conducted.
A celestial orb falls from the heavens when the time is
So now I'm kind of moving around Headwind.
Exiles conduct the rites as
I can pass this orb
or they must prove their trust in
to whoever.
not just in themselves. The free must
Like they're saying, only one exile can move at a time. Sprint. But your stamina is limited per person. Some people's stamina runs out fast than other. And then you douse the pyre.
The exiled rookie has the way of it. Whoever steps into the flame is banished for a time. His or her cohorts must make do on their own. Oh, but it is not so simple.
You'll usually have people you go against there.
Face adversaries whose own freedom is at stake. Beware the aura that surrounds them, as they shall beware yours.
Now, if someone has the orb and I touch them with my aura, they die.
The aura is
Or
your
are
own
banished
doing.
temporary.
Accept it as a part of you.
And they can do the same thing to you, so you have to be careful.
Cast your aura like a stone.
Then I can cast my aura towards them
Quietly done.
as a blast. Each character's blast is unique to them, it's different.
Again. Just so.
Also, you notice I was kind of flashing there. If I do it on time,
Expected from the likes of you.
if I do it on time, then I could actually do
Once more.
extra damage. So then sometimes they'll block it,
Then the orb quenches the flame.
and then I have to throw it.
Now I say jump.
Actually, not throw it, I have to
With
jump.
all your strength.
And I could jump over their auras. And jumping or throwing or running into it will do different kinds of damage, also based upon what items you're carrying at the time. So now they're gonna start moving against me a little bit.
Rookie doused the adversary's flames.
So now Rookie just jumped in.
Verily,
Now of course it's really easy right now. See, his is a little more narrow. I got Jodario, she moves slower, but hers is pretty wide.
be gone,
See,
Jodario.
I just got doused.
Fear not the purified flame.
Of course it gets a lot more complicated. You also realize that in some of the people you'll be going against, like the guys saying above,
There, dear reader. Now
some people in your group,
or do you? This was but a glimpse of that which lies ahead. I would tell you to turn back, cast down your hope. But all those such as you never listen.
yeah, but anyways, so people you'll go against, sometimes people in your group know them, sometimes they may owe them money, sometimes they may be their sister, or, you know, maybe of the same as them. The game does a great job of making even the quote-unquote villains feel like, you know, damn, like they also want to go back home to the Commonwealth. You know, it's not just like, oh, we are the heroes and everyone else is the villain. It's like, you know, some of the other people are actually regular people too. They're actually regular people too that how do I say it? They're regular people too that also want freedom, so they do a great job of making no one really feel like the villain per se, unless you're talking about people from the Commonwealth, because they're very structured and they can be very oppressive, which is, you know, as you go along in the story, kind of makes people wonder, like I told you, you know, do we really want to go back there anyways, even though down here is horrible. So then now, whenever it's time to search for the next right, I look towards the stars, seek out a destination, and I'll look all around Cosmos here, and then here we are. And it'll give you a description of gold, the south star. Click on it, it'll show the little image that we gotta head to, and then we'll have a exchange a little dialogue, and then we'll head over there. So now we're joining them in a wagon, we're heading along. Each of the environments that you'll go to is different and varied. Like I said, the art is probably the game's, you know, strongest point. Other than, you know, the cool story, the art is awesome. As you can see, it's, you know, very vibrant, very colorful. We're in Downside Prairie. Now, you also reach this area to where, many times, different party members will say, oh, let's go over here, or oh, let's go over here, and you have to decide for them because, you know, they can be a little indecisive. So now I have to weigh my options. So you could always choose, you know, different routes, and it'll always tell you. It'll be like, okay, Dario wants you to go here because she thinks you could find a rare item here, or Ruki wants you to go here because, you know, maybe for a personal reason. And whatever you pick isn't super consequential. Sometimes you'll find items to sell at a place called the Slug Market, which you see a little later, where you can buy items for your members. Sometimes you'll do something personal for the character. Excuse me. Sometimes you'll have a little respite in between rites, called vocations as well. These vocations, you take time to either study the book with an individual scribe, so that their level increases. You could go to level 5, that's the highest you could go. Each time they level up a level, then they're able to learn an ability. They can only learn 4 abilities in total, and they can only have 1 equipment item on at a time. And they all have their different kinds of abilities, so none of the abilities are the same. Some characters are more useful than others as well, of course. Some are faster, some are slower, some are better at defense, some are better at offense. So now we found a plain parcel. We could sell this at the Slug Market. It'll usually tell you it's a trade item, so, and it'll tell you the value. So then now we stop here, and then usually before you commence the rite, you can actually go into the black wagon, and you'll have shiny stuff to touch here, stuff that's probably new. Most of it you can't really do anything with, you kind of just tap it. Usually when someone's sitting in this corner here, it'll be any of the scribes. It's usually there's something they want to talk about, something that's pressing on their mind. So let's click on Ruki and see what he wants. So he's talking about when we went to the Hollow Root. I was talking about Slug Market. Talking about rare items. Sometimes the conversations are short, sometimes they're long. It depends on what they're talking about. You also go back here to the common room. Like it said, you could view notes, observations about fellow exiles, and help them towards the path of enlightenment. There's your level cap there, 1-5. This is where you're going to put your abilities, your masteries. This is Headwind. And it'll also tell you, if you put it over the level, how much enlightenment you have and how much you'll need. Talisman pocket, that's where you put all your items, so you'll just click here, your items will be here on the right hand side. Obviously we don't have any at the moment. You could click on their bio and they'll tell you what they know about them so far. Of course, a lot of it's going to say unknown because we're still super early in the story. Then it'll show up here too. Glory is basically how much damage you do when you strike a pyre. Presence is how big your aura size is, which would determine how easy it is for you to just go near an enemy party that's carrying an orb and eradicate them. Hope affects duration of banishment, so how long you could be banished for during combat. And quickness is just movement speed, so nothing super complicated. We got Jodariel, and then we got Rookie. Like I said, as you go, more things are made known to you. In Book of Rites, you'll basically be reading this all the time. Every time you do an exile or you find a new place or anything like that. Oh, there are also these things called Titan Stars that appear later on in the story, that make rites harder, actually. And they do add to the story. It's not like they just pop up for no reason. They make the rites harder, so each time you do a rite, you pick a Titan Star, but the Titan Stars make your adversaries better, not you better. Sometimes they affect you directly, sometimes they just affect your opponent. So you can read about the first exile team. Tons of volumes in that book. You'll be reading it all game, basically. There's always the autosave feature. Commence the right. Sometimes, well, usually the opposing team will talk to you either before a right starts. That's how you know a right's about to start, when it does insignia. Sometimes the team will talk to you before a right, sometimes they'll talk to you during. They'll usually speak after, before the right's over completely.
Freedom! The stars align at last. You reach the Ridge of Goal at the appointed time, and your triumvirate is ready. Your adversaries in the rites this eve shall be the Accusers.
They all have their own names too. And
is extinguished shall step closer to freedom. Now let the rites commence.
And sometimes I'll have stuff in the middle to make it a little harder to move about for both parties. Sometimes parties during the fight, they'll get, like, you know, angry, or, you know, feel the pressure of the fight. Maybe they'll start performing a little better, a little quicker. Maybe they'll, you know, put some obstacles in the middle to make it harder for you to make it over to them. As the story goes, the rites do get more difficult. Right now it's relatively easy. Oh, in order to get experience in this game, you have to have the scribes conduct the rites. Now, as you probably have guessed, you get a lot of scribes. You get, like, I want to say like 8 or 9 of them and during the course of this game. Now people can get I forgot what it was called, but they can get some, like, minimal points for being outside of combat, but they get most of their points being in it. So then there's one of the leaders. Usually the leader will talk. Really no one else in the opposite tribes will talk. It's usually just the leader. Excuse me. Okay, now we're gonna do this. We're gonna run.
vanished in an instant.
So now I just banished them.
No, you don't.
See, they just got me. Damn. Yes, I'm not so good right now. Wow. Why am I sucking so much right now?
Stand not in glory's path. Have the accusers underestimated you? The orb.
Rookie's really useful, especially in the beginning, because he's so much quicker than everyone.
It seems that you have flustered the accusers.
So now they're gonna, you know, make it harder for us to get down there. So now they're gonna tell us, okay, now just fling the orb because it's too difficult to walk. So the longer you hold it, the stronger it'll be when you toss it.
A daring display. Flinging the orb into
Now, of course, that's easier said than done because, you know, after a while they're gonna just move around, you know, at whim. So it's like you won't be able to just, you know, sit there and hold it like that. But I just take advantage of the fact that it's easy. Damn it.
Someone there rose to the occasion.
Oh, I thought I grabbed it.
Sublime.
Probably just have to do it one more time. That'll do.
Your victories at hand.
Yeah, and that guy talks all the time, especially during the rites.
And it is done.
And they'll say, "Yay, we won."
Rejoice then in your single fleeting victory.
Yeah, that guy can be a dick sometimes.
Bask now in the wisdom of
And of
the
course you get
stars.
more points too if you know, started dousing flames as well. So she just leveled it up.
Only the enlightened
I could choose a
regain
mastery,
their freedom.
either from Sins of the Fallen Emperor or Boons of the First Exile. So I could either pick, after banishing an adversary, Jodariel instantly recovers all her stamina, very useful. Or I could pick Longstride. After using her rush to lunge forward, Jodariel can rush again right away. So let's pick Relentless Vigor.
Scribe bestows his favor.
So not quite for him. It's only one person leveled up this time. Oh, yeah, I forgot about the vocations. So, it's not just only helping them to level up individually. You could also take time to read the book yourself, read privately, and it helps to the overall performance of your team. You know, whether it's adding quickness, adding glory, adding presence, whatever it is. You could also, in certain areas, just farm for items in, you know, different areas, and you'll get rare items or, you know, stuff you could sell at the slug market. I'm glad this broadcast is going pretty well. I haven't gotten that horrible symbol for the networking. Sometimes they'll, certain members will ask you to step outside from the rest of the group to talk to you individually. Like I say, you could always ask these questions. You'll like the guy said too. You'll notice as a reader, you cannot conduct rites, which means you can't return to the Commonwealth technically. So then gaze at the stars, and it'll take us to our next location. It'll usually be pretty obvious where to go, so you usually won't have to guess. So that's the next place. You'll notice everywhere we go, all the areas we go are actually where the Titans used to be. This is just wrecked remnants of the Titans. Of the Titan source I was talking about. The Titans are these things that the original 8 scribes fought many years ago when they did their pilgrimage. So there's Black Wagon again. You talk to someone else, talk to Rookie again. He also has something he wants to talk about. And yeah, sometimes I ask you funny questions, like he's asking about his mustache. Oh, he actually got rid of it? Because when I first played, he kept the mustache the whole time. 2+1 hope for the next right. So I always encourage you to talk to your fellow scribes when they're available. Also, as you go on, this caravan will be upgraded for different kinds of travel, whether through water, through air. Here's another area. Jomer Valley. In some areas in the game, and there's a new person. Some areas in the game are so inhospitable for the scribes that they actually, the longer you're in it, the more hope they lose, or the more stats, decrease. So you have to be careful when you make certain decisions about where to go and how long to stay in some place. So she's one of the other people you'll get. You also notice this guy named Sandalwood, which is Headwind's informant, is the one that's kind of pulling the strings to get us to start, being liberated to the Commonwealth one after another, basically to undermine the Commonwealth, to be like, okay, like, we're staging a revolt, basically. So she kind of knows who Sandalwood is. So then she was saying, well, I want to join, and now you can give her a name. There's a bunch of different ones, but they usually end with AE. I called her Bay last time. So let's just say Faye. But for trophy purposes and just for what she was called before, her name was Stowaway. So now she's part of the team, and she can conduct in the next rites. Another person to talk to. Take your options. So as you can see, the further along you go, the more these people feel. Oh yeah, here's the vocations. So here's the 3 things you could pick. Forge for resources, like I mentioned. Study in private to influence the overall stats of everyone, or do mentor companion, do individual. Let's say we studied in private. So then it'll say, okay, +1 presence, +1 quickness, +1 hope. You can only do hope twice, quickness twice, presence twice, and glory twice. So let's say we want to do quickness. So now readers influence celerity. So each rank raises your fellow exiles' quickness, making them move faster. And that's it. And then we'll just say continue on the journey. And then usually from time to time, see that insignia there is basically saying this is where the right's gonna happen. From time to time it'll be like, okay, well, which area do you want to head to prior to going there? So in this case it's just Faye talking, so she'll tell you different reasons to go to different places. But in any case, that's mostly what I wanted to show you. Exit campaign, proceed. That's mostly what I wanted to show you. That was Pyre. It was a fun, you know, different kind of RPG that I played. I would recommend it. It's not that long. Pyre is one of those RPGs where it's as long as you make it, and I guess you could kind of say that about really most Western RPGs anyways, like Oblivion or Skyrim. It's kind of as long as you make it. But in this case it really holds true, because there's a lot of things you don't have to do in this game that you could do. Like you could also do practice trials with the Beyonder Crystal, which is something you see later. Sometimes the person in the Beyonder Crystal, she's a part of an exile group that was locked in it. Sometimes she'll offer up times where it's like, okay, let me pick out this specific scribe. They'll go in, they'll go against her and her two members, and if they win, then they get a special item akin to them. I guess a secret item, you could say. Yeah, you'll just get different things, encounter new options as you go along, and it's just overall a great game to play, and I recommend it to pretty much anybody, especially if you really like storylines a little bit above action, because although it has action, it's not like crazy action or, you know, ripping people's heads off or anything like that. But if you're like a big story person, you can see the books being burnt there. That's kind of what they did in the Commonwealth, and those are the different insignias of different tribes. But yeah, if you're a big story person and like RPGs, I would definitely play this game. Anyways, I'll see you guys next time. Peace.